Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the luncheon of the 2022 Yushan Forum. In the morning, we had fruitful discussions on building economic resilience, and now it's time for everyone to take a break and enjoy the good food and each other's company. First, we would like to welcome the host of the luncheon, His Excellency Tien Chung-kwang, Deputy Minister of Ministry of Foreign Affairs, R.O.C. Taiwan, to give us his remarks. Please welcome Deputy Minister Tien with a warm round of applause.
Dr. Xinhua Michael Shao, Chairman of the Taiwan-Asia Exchange Foundation, the Honorable Julie Bishop, Chancellor of Australian National University and former Foreign Minister of Australia, Excellencies, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me a tremendous pleasure to host this Yushan Forum Luncheon. On behalf of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, I would like to welcome you all and thank you all to participate. I'm sure you have already learned from the inspiring remarks and the rousing discussions we had this morning. As the pandemic recedes and the society reopens, we must cooperate more closely and learn from each other how best to revitalize, reorient it, and reconnect. The annual Yushan Forum is an important platform to promote dialogue and cooperation between Taiwan and its partner countries in South and Southeast Asia, as well as Australia and New Zealand. The forum is an opportunity to showcase progress made under the new Southbound policy. The policy is people-centric and seeks mutual assistance for mutual benefit as well as sustainable development. Since launching the new Southbound policy in 2016, we have made substantial progress on economic collaboration, talent exchanges, resource sharing, and regional linkages. Looking ahead, we will continue to promote the regional stability and the prosperity by coordinating the new Southbound policy with the United States Indo-Pacific strategy, Japan's free and open Indo-Pacific, India's Act East policy, and ASEAN's outlook on the Indo-Pacific. Today, we are very delighted and honored that the Chancellor Julie Bishop has joined us online as our luncheon speaker. This is the third consecutive year we have had Australian political leaders participate, following former Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull and Tony Abbott. This shows that the Taiwan-Australia friendship is flourishing under the new Southbound policy. Chancellor Bishop will speak to us about Taiwan and Australia, natural and resilient partners in the free and open Indo-Pacific. I fully agree with this sentiment. Let me briefly introduce our speaker. Ms. Bishop is the 13th Chancellor of Australian National University and the first woman to hold that position. Before this, she was long a national political figure, and she was a deputy leader of the Liberal Party from 2007 to 2018. In government, she served in many positions under the different prime ministers. She has been Minister for Aging, Minister for Women, Minister for Education and Science, as well as acting Prime Minister. Perhaps most prominently, she was Australia's 38th Minister for Foreign Affairs from 2013 through 2018. One of the Ms. Bishop's greatest achievements as Foreign Minister was implementing the new Colombo Plan, which enables young Australians to live, to study, and work across the Indo-Pacific region. In just 5 years, more than 40,000 students have benefited from this plan, including over 1,000 who have come to Taiwan to study. This far-sighted plan has proven to be a great success in this Indo-Pacific era. Taiwan and Australia share common values and are committed to peace, security, stability, and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific region. And Taiwan is a beacon of democracy in Asia and a force for good in the world. But today, Taiwan confronts increasingly aggressive threats, such as military intimidation, gray zone activities, and the influence operations. Democracies and the rules-based international order are facing their greatest challenge since the Cold War. Authoritarian regimes like China and Russia are attempting to rewrite the rules and expand. China's ambition will not stop at Taiwan. We are on the front lines in defending democracy. Ensuring Taiwan's security and maintaining status quo across the Taiwan Strait are critical to maintaining a free and open Indo-Pacific. And Taiwan is committed to working with like-minded partners in safeguard peace and stability in the region. We have much to learn from Chancellor Bishop and hope that we can elevate our neutral and resilient partnership to a higher level. Without further ado, let's welcome Chancellor Bishop with a round of applause. Thank you very much. Thank you. Ms. Bishop. Thank you.
Deputy Minister Tien, thank you for that kind introduction, and I greatly regret not being able to be with you and the forum participants in person today. But I join you from the Australian National University campus in Canberra. I extend my warmest regards to all the participants of the Yushan Forum and wish you the very best in your deliberations. My theme today is Taiwan and Australia as natural and resilient partners in the free and open Indo-Pacific. What should be self-evident statements and sentiments that are close to my heart as it builds on the work I undertook during my time as Australia's Minister for Foreign Affairs. The fact is, Australia and Taiwan have long been partners in support of a free and open Indo-Pacific. Taiwan has played an important role in supporting many developing nations in our region, including Pacific Island nations that have deep historical, strategic, social and economic ties with Australia. I know there remains great affection and appreciation for the people of Taiwan among those Pacific Island nations. Australia and Taiwan have deep ties, including a healthy two-way trading relationship valued at more than $24 billion a year. In my current role as Chancellor of the Australian National University, I'm pleased to note that Australia is now the third most popular destination for international students to Australian educational institutions, behind only the United States and the United Kingdom. And that includes over 8,650 students from Taiwan in the year 2021, although I'm hopeful that it will increase as we emerge from restrictions imposed as part of our response to the global pandemic. Thank you for mentioning Australia's new Columba plan, for under that plan, our students are undertaking part of their undergraduate studies in your universities. And I believe this two-way exchange of students is a powerful connection between us now and in the future. Importantly, we are both governed on vibrant democratic principles which reflect our values and our respective worldview. Our perspectives align in many areas, and we both believe that a free and open Indo-Pacific is best promoted and protected by the rules-based international order. That network of agreements and treaties and norms, conventions and institutions underpinned by international law that has evolved in the decades since World War II. The rules-based order was designed to prevent a repeat of the horrors of global conflict that twice engulfed the world in the 20th century. It's not perfect, but if it didn't exist, we would have to create it. It has also supported the greatest expansion of prosperity in human history, with millions and millions lifted out of poverty. One of the principles of the rules-based order is that disputes between nations are resolved peacefully without the threat of military force or other forms of coercion. This makes it particularly important for smaller nations and states to ensure that might is right is not a defining global principle. In 2017, I released a foreign policy white paper intended to guide Australia's international engagements over the subsequent decade. That paper anticipated a more contested and competitive world where laws and norms would increasingly be challenged. It forecast an era of shifts in relative power between nations and the rules-based international order undermined by some nations seeking short-term gain, while political populists would offer the false hope of protectionism and isolationism. I've continued to gain many insights into how other nations are responding to these challenges during my 2021 tenure as the Henry Kissinger Fellow of the John McCain Institute for International Leadership at Arizona State University. One element of my research work was to study the United States' influence in the Indo-Pacific, partly in the context of the great power struggle underway with China. I interviewed, via Zoom as we were unable to travel due to COVID, a number of senior political leaders from Japan, Southeast Asia, Australia, New Zealand, Pacific Island nations, and some former heads of intelligence organisations from the Five Eyes network. Two topics were consistently raised by people from very different backgrounds and perspectives. The first, economic issues are most important in terms of influence in the Indo-Pacific at this time. But through its Belt and Road Initiative and other loans, China was regarded as leading that contest in many developing countries, as political leaders said they had few other options to develop national infrastructure. The second issue was that of the political, economic and governance models on offer. China's diplomats were active in promoting the success of their national approach, their model, and compared that to what they describe as political dysfunction and the overall decline of democratic Western nations. One political leader described this contest of ideas as a struggle for the soul of his nation. He, in fact, believed that long-term stability could only be achieved through democracy. But this really brought home to me the importance of ensuring our own domestic political and economic systems have integrity, as there are potential international implications should we allow them to fall into dysfunction and be deemed by China a failed system. Against this backdrop of the contest of ideas, the world is going through a time of disruption and change, not only due to the global pandemic and Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine, but this disruption is being driven by what I refer to as mega trends. The first megatrend is that we're in the early stages of the fourth industrial revolution, the technology revolution. And technology has already had a profound impact on how we live and work and interact. However, experts predict the biggest changes are still ahead and will be driven by rapid gains in computing power, high-speed connectivity, artificial intelligence, and other technologies still under development. Predictions that artificial intelligence, robots and automation will disrupt entire industries are threatening to large parts of the community who fear that they'll be rendered redundant. It's hard to see any sector not facing some form of potential disruption. Taiwan is, of course, exquisitely placed to flourish in this space. I well recall attending a World Congress on Information Technology in Taipei while I was a Member of Parliament, and I observed firsthand your leading role in the IT field. There is good news. Humanity is not redundant. The World Economic Forum every 2 years releases the Future of Jobs report, which reveals several important issues for business operators and managers. The report argues that a stronger case is emerging for companies and businesses to adopt a strategy of technology augmentation of their workforce to achieve the best outcome for profitability and efficiency. That is, technology augmenting, not replacing employees. It does, however, warn that millions of people will be displaced from current work while new opportunities will arise. So managing this dislocation will require governments to partner with the private sector in providing training and support for people to have the necessary skills for long-term employment. I've already alluded to the second mega trend, the rising tensions between the United States and China, that is close to open confrontation and fierce competition. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, in his September 2019 address to the General Assembly, warned of the potential for a great fracture, the world splitting into two, with the two largest economies on Earth creating two separate and competing worlds, each with their own dominant currency, trade and financial rules, their own internet and artificial intelligence capacities, and their own zero-sum geopolitical and military strategies. Trade tensions are across the board, and particularly in the technology sector. And I note that both the United States and Australia have invoked national security provisions to ban Chinese vendors from parts of our communications infrastructure. In the past, Australian governments have always rejected the proposition that we had to choose between the United States and China as our international partner. But that has come under increasing pressure in recent times as both China and the United States have sought to force a choice in many aspects of engagement. And that's likely to continue over the status of Taiwan, among other issues. A third megatrend is a backlash against the forces of globalism, which is coming from communities that believe they are now worse off while elites have enriched themselves. This backlash is at odds with the economic principles of efficiency, economies of scale, and comparative advantage that will continue to drive globalisation. But this is where I expect the political class to intervene. We are likely to see regulatory changes in many nations that creates a more favourable environment for domestic manufacturing of a range of products. For example, supply chain disruptions to personal protective equipment at the start of the pandemic highlighted vulnerabilities. And of course, the Russian invasion of Ukraine is making the supply chain disruptions far worse. And this will have significant implications for domestic business and employment over the longer term. A fourth megatrend is climate change, which will continue to bring uncertainty to important industries, including agriculture. Government responses, including transitioning to cleaner energy and transport, among other things, will also have a profound impact on our economies. The response to these megatrends and other challenges would ideally be undertaken through the multilateral system. However, there are signs of stress and significant obstacles. Russia's veto power at the UN Security Council is preventing a coordinated international response to its illegal invasion of Ukraine. Likewise, China holds that power of veto. So, for example, there's no recourse to China's unilateral rejection of the 2016 UNCLOS arbitral ruling on its South China Sea claims. I would argue that when multilateralism fails the world, like-minded nations and partners need to work on smaller groupings, including bilateralism, to protect our interests and that of the wider world. This is where Australia's relationship with Taiwan takes on greater importance. Informal or unofficial groupings of communities and partners supportive of the rules-based order will become increasingly important in the years ahead. There is significant alarm at the breakdown in international cooperation. For example, leading nations coordinated a response to the 2008-2009 global financial crisis. There's far less confidence that such a response could be achieved if similar circumstances were to occur today. China's sabre-rattling in relation to Taiwan is a cause for global concern, although I would expect China's risk calculus will be influenced by the global response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. While I often claim Australia is an energy and resources export superpower, Taiwan has superpower status for semiconductors. The president of the US strategic analytical firm RAND Corporation recently wrote that Taiwan produces 92% of the world's advanced microchips, and that was a strategic challenge for the United States. Well, I'd go further and suggest that is a strategic challenge for the entire world. So how can smaller members of the global community have their voices heard during times of great power struggles? I think there are two ways in which we can maximise our influence. The first is to develop policies that strengthen us and which others can then seek to emulate. The second is to influence the decisions and policies of other nations and institutions, including through the multilateral system where it's supportive. Most importantly, we need to identify and partner with others that have comparable concerns and interests and values in upholding and strengthening the rules-based international order. We need to work together to reject zero-sum approaches where one nation can only win at the expense of others. The international environment since World War II has been one where the rising tide has the potential to lift all boats, depending on domestic policy considerations, of course. But we allow the rules-based order to fray at our peril. It is time for all nations with an interest in the order to step up. And Australia, in partnership with Taiwan, can and will be a force for good and for stability in an uncertain world. I wish you all the very best in your deliberations.
Thank you very much, Chancellor Bishop, for your wonderful sharing. And ladies and gentlemen, now we would like to invite everyone to join us in a toast. Please raise your glass. Okay. Cheers! So now the banquet will begin. Bon appetit, and we will see you later. Thank you.